All right. Rotary model.
Service above self.
Okay, let's see if we can stumble through the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
States of America,
to the republic
to the
for which it
republic
stands,
which it
one
stands,
nation under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice
for all.
for all. Oh, totally butchered it again. So we'll have a moment's silence. All right. Welcome, everyone. Is there anything that anyone would like to say? Because it's just so pressing, you might forget it if you don't say it now.
Randy, how's Dawn doing?
Not all at once.
Hey, Randy, how is Dawn doing?
You're on mute, Randy.
You're on mute.
Randy is on mute.
Here they are.
I like that guy in the
There you
TV commercial, you know, that gives all the good information when he's on mute.
Oh, look at Bill Stram. Good, great.
She's doing fine. We still don't know the cause. She's got another MRI scheduled. Thank you all very much for the beautiful flowers in the club. They're really, really nice. Way over the top, believe me, but we really did appreciate it. So we'll know more. Got another week to go on the antibiotics, but
Oh,
not a particularly good pathogen, but what she's taking is supposed to be the best one for it. So we'll see how it goes.
that's great.
I see that Jennifer Looks has just signed in. She's the speaker today for the luncheon speaker. Hello.
Yes, Jen is on. I wanted to let Randy finish the report with Dawn. Jen said, wave to everybody, Jen. We'll introduce you in about 20 minutes. And meanwhile, you're welcome just to listen in to a lot of nonsense.
All right, I can do that, thanks.
Okay. Where are you located, Jen?
I'm in Richmond.
Oh, okay, all the way from Richmond. All right, well, look, we look forward to talking about road markers and getting smart about that in a bit. We'll do a little club business first. Regina, I want to thank you for taking care of the flowers for Dawn.
Already new people.
And not sending them to Stanley. Stanley doesn't get flowers. But Stanley, give us an update on your sciatica.
It's still sciaticing. Like I said before, the last time I had it a few years ago was on the other leg, and it lasted only about a week. Now this is tomorrow will be 2 weeks, and I'm trying various methods: exercise, heating pad.
Are you
cold
in a lot
press.
of pain?
Yeah. I'm gonna try a nutritional thing with Reggie, but we'll see what happens.
Have you tried sleeping on the floor?
You know, that's a great spot because I always think that my mattress is too soft. But that's a good idea. Yeah, I've tried that. I do my exercises on the floor and on a hard floor. So that's right.
Well, good luck with that, Stan. I'm glad
Thank you.
you're making progress. A few more announcements. Many of you will remember Seymour Bradley or Brad Bradley. How many remember Seymour Bradley? Well, Brad has lost his wife, and Jim, help me with Jim Stannard. Jim Stannard told me the other day that they're going to have a memorial service on the 17th. So if anyone's interested in joining a very informal memorial service for his wife, get to me or Jim, and we'll give you the details. That's May 17th. It'll be at the Eastville Inn. Brad, I guess Brad has been resigned about 3 years ago. Time flies, but we occasionally see him. This Saturday from noon to 3, the Exmoor Club is selling their barbecue in Town Park in Exmoor. If you don't know where Town Park is, this will be a good chance to learn. It's in downtown Exmoor. $10 a pint, and this is for the Exmoor Club's fundraising. Randy.
You do have to reserve your pint in advance, or 2 pints, whatever it is, which I did. And they said I could pay when I got there, though.
Yeah, I've just been too lazy to reserve mine. I'm gonna take my chances. So
You need to reserve the pint.
yeah, they'll give me some barbecue. I know those guys and ladies. But Paul's right, and I sent out an email. Tommy, their president-elect, Tom. What's Tommy's last name?
Arnold.
Tommy Arnold. Give him a call and reserve your pint or 2 of barbecue.
You can also send him an email and do it.
Or, as Paul suggests, send him an email. Or smoke signals. It's up to you. Now, Randy, how about a update, and you're on mute, on our golf cart raffle?
We are progressing. The 3 places in Cape Charles have their tickets. I understand that at Rayfields, they've actually sold a few tickets already, so that's good. I hope you've all seen what Jim and Joan have done with the PR. Joan has really given us top billing in her weekly, we'll call it a blog, I'm not sure what she calls it, her newsletter. Jim has it going in the post. I haven't seen it in the post yet, but it may be there. Really did a wonderful job making a poster, good photograph of the cart, and so forth. So that's all going well. I hope everyone is selling tickets. A reminder, we're hopeful that everybody, all the members, have their tickets sold by the 31st of May. If you sell them all and are finished, you can turn the proceeds and the stubs into either myself or Paul. If not, come the 31st, you'll be getting contacted by either Al, Mike, or Stan. We're going to do a collection so we get things together, know where we stand as we go into June. Mike is he's the mayor of Cherry Stone Campground. He took me on a tour the other day, and it's absolutely incredible. First of all, what they have down there, and second, what he knows about what they have down there. But we're set up for the 29th, Memorial Day weekend, May 29th. I think we'll be there, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, but from like 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And we need some volunteers. It'd be good if we could get 4, maybe 5 people there. Wayne he's on board to provide his trailer. I'm not sure yet whether he's going to tow his trailer or I'm going to tow his trailer, but we're going to get the golf cart down there. So we're ready to go with that. Pending is doing it again down at Sunset Beach in June, assuming we have any tickets left. But that would be a wonderful thing if we could not do it one more time, because all 1,500 tickets have been sold. I don't think we're going to have that problem, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get there in advance. So things are going along pretty well. As long as everybody's selling their tickets, we're going to be in real good shape.
Thank you, Randy. I'll just add two things or comment on 2 points Randy made. Jim's article was in last Friday's Eastern Shore Post. It was a great article. And I would just say, if you sell all your tickets, get more. Don't stop. So there's nothing, it's okay to sell more than 20 tickets. So let's
I'll deliver. Just let me know.
Yep. Randy's got, you be like Paul Strong. Paul, how many thousand have you sold, Paul?
Nowhere near to what you sold, I'm sure.
Oh, no. I'm having a bad time of it. Okay, well, thank you. Again, we should be thinking about our service projects. No need to go through all of them right today, but Tammy couldn't join the meeting today, but she's going to work on the basket for the Eastern Shore Public Library, and she needs help. So thinking about whether or not you can help Tammy out with the basket for the Eastern Shore Public Library. Diane, you were going to give us an update on the caboose in town, right?
Right, right. So last year, the museum had asked us to pause the project because of the pandemic. And now I have some good news. When we left the project, paused the project, there were a lot of unanswered questions in the air, and those have all been resolved. So we have reactivated the project. This is with the Cape Charles Museum to restore the caboose. So our committee met this week and we got an update from the museum, and I'd like to share that information now so that everybody knows. The museum does have funds for the project, and of course that had been one of our big questions. And so they have told us that they have the funds. They also have made arrangements to work with Northampton Lumber for the paint and supplies. And they have done some work with the trees and branches that were a little bit too close to the caboose that, we wanted to have removed or trimmed back. And they have taken care of that. They've also done some things on the inside. There were some unrelated items on the inside, and those have all been put in storage, so we don't have to worry about that. We made the decision, and I have to give Chuck credit for this. We decided to start on the outside of the caboose rather than the inside, to start on the outside and stabilize it. And then in the fall, when it's a little bit cooler, turn to the work on the inside. And that is weather related because it's just going to be too hot to be working on the inside. But for the outside, we know there's some things on the roof that are going to need repairing. And then there may be some, rust repair kind of stuff. We'll have to take a closer look. But we will get it painted, in the, I'm going to say, not too far from now. We're going next week for a site visit so we can remind ourselves of the work that's to be done. We're going to start putting together our supply list. So if you are a do-it-yourself person, or if you like the idea of helping to restore a caboose car, we're going to be looking for some volunteers for the project. So we'll hope you'll consider being a volunteer. We'll be sharing more information in the upcoming weeks about the kind of help we need and what volunteers, will be doing to help out. But I wanted to give this update because we've reactivated and everybody's excited, for the work to come. I think most people on the committee are trained buffs. So, they have an interest in seeing this caboose. And I'll say that the museum plans to have the caboose probably be the only one of the cars where the public can go on the inside and see it. So they won't just be looking at the outside and reading signage about the kind of car it is. They'll actually be able to go inside and see some of the features that the caboose has. And it's really interesting when you go inside to see everything they were doing from that one train car. So that's my update.
Questions for Diane on the project? Well, I have one question, Diane.
Yes.
Will Rotary be the only partner on this, or are there other organizations that we're working with?
Last year, I didn't update myself on that when I was talking to them, but last year when they invited us to do this, we were the first group they asked. And the plan that they had at that time was that they would seek other organizations for each one of the cars, and that our being the first, we would serve kind of as a model for it.
Okay, so we've got the caboose, and this is an opportunity to get a rotary wheel on the caboose. So let's keep that in mind as we proceed.
And I should say, I didn't mention my committee members, and Paul is on the committee, as is Medi. Larry Lamont isn't here today, and Chuck isn't here today, but they are also both on the committee.
So,
I hope
so
I
you
didn't
brought
leave anybody out.
Larry out of retirement.
Brought him out of retirement. Yes, he's actually excited about it. He sent me a real nice note saying how excited he is.
Oh, that's
So
great.
I'm glad about that. Yeah.
Speaking of the museum has opened for viewing already on Saturday, and they will be open from on a regular basis now. And they have a nice exhibit of Laura Smith's historical research on Taylor Jefferson and Laura Lewis. So this is in relation to our project of Invisible History. And I encourage the members to visit the museum and look at the exhibits, because that might be the prototype of what we may want to do with our information eventually. One of the ways that we can publicize the invisible history of Cape Charles.
All right, well, thank you, Medi. We have a couple of latecomers, but they were busy doing good things. Jim Rich is on, and Jim, you missed the thank you everybody extended to you for the great job you're doing with the.
Oh, me?
Cool.
With the,
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Yeah, we're looking good. We're looking good. And Mark, what happened to you? Mark? Oh, there you are, Mark. Mark wasn't here last week. And we announced last week that Mark was a Paul Harris Fellow +6. So
I see that when Maurice was there.
I'm sorry?
I think she lived on the front.
Who's talking?
Just be on mute.
I'm on mute?
No, Tom Godwin.
Oh,
Tom, are you talking to us?
I don't think so.
I think Tom was talking to Juanita. Well, anyway, Mark, congratulations on your 6th Sapphire. And I've got your pin here, and I can't wait for us to get together and we present that to you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, what else? We're coming along, so enough. Oh, Paul, a quick COVID update, and then we'll do happy dollars.
Okay, I want to just make 2 points. I gave a real optimistic report last week because Cape Charles had no new cases and every place was down, but that's not true this week. People, some like the Eastern Shore is up in terms of number of cases, and Cape Charles had 3 new cases last week. So, but if you look at the last 10 weeks of all the locations, even in the United States, the graph of the last weeks is almost at a plateau with a very slight downward slope. Now, the good thing is that the number we're at is lower than anything we've seen since last October. But the bad news is it still isn't far from what we saw at the height of the peak last summer. So we need to do better, which means we need to get more people vaccinated. That's reached sort of a difficult point too, in that the pace of vaccinations has decreased significantly over the past 2 weeks, virtually everywhere in the United States. So a lot of experts are now questioning whether we'll ever be able to reach herd immunity because of the slow vaccination rate now in the United States, and the fact that very few people in the world are vaccinated, so that variants are likely to continue to appear, and some of them will evade the vaccination probably, and we'll be dealing with a chronic situation like the flu.
Very good, Paul. Any question of Paul regarding COVID or anything else? Super. Then, Diane, what time is it? It is.
Hey, Bill,
Yes.
Dave had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nix the happy dollars. Dave, what do you got? You're on mute, Dave. Dave, you're on mute. Thanks, Stan.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there was something I wanted to bring up, if you don't mind me taking a few minutes, please.
No, absolutely.
I'm sure, look, this is backwards. It says the Rotary magazine, right?
Yep.
Are all of you all getting this magazine?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I want to say that every month, this is some of the best reading I'm getting, delivered to my home. And I want to highly recommend that our membership take time to really work their way through each issue, because there's some real great things in there. But there was one thing I wanted to point out. This is an article about the Citizens Climate Lobby. And, I first came to Rotary in 2012 to speak to the Rotary about the Citizens Climate Lobby. And I'm a volunteer, and I'm the District 2 representative for the state of Virginia. And for 9 years, I've been lobbying our congressman or congresswoman now, to support some proposed legislation to fight climate change. And the best program going is presented by the Citizens Climate Lobby, which in fact was founded by a Rotarian in 2006. So I wanted to bring this article to your attention in this month's issue of the Rotarian magazine, especially as it relates to the new emphasis of Rotary International in conservation efforts for our environment. So there is some new legislation in Congress. It's called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And it has 85 sponsors in the House of Representatives. And some of the members here have written letters to our congressman, our congressperson, to bring this act to her attention. She still has not signed on as a sponsor for this legislation. And I wanted to ask if any of you would look up this act, read about it. You can go to citizensclimatelobby.org and read all about it, learn what's going on. And it is an act before Congress, and we need the support of our congressional representatives to really make this our best tool for the nation to fight climate change. There's one other thing I wanted to mention, that on June 5th in Exmoor at 9 a.m. at the town park, there's going to be a gathering of volunteers in honor of Clean the Bay Day, which is sponsored by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. It's an annual event. I'm sure many of you have probably helped with, but it's for 3 hours that day. You can join one of the teams that'll be gathering at the park in Exmoor at 9 a.m. on the 5th, and spend a few hours with an effort to help efforts to clean the Chesapeake Bay. So thank you for letting me make this announcement, Bill. I appreciate it.
David, thank you. You always bring good stuff to the table. You are an exemplary Rotarian. Many of us just don't find time to invest an hour or so in reading the magazine, but when I do find time, I'm never disappointed. So stay after us, David. All right, now we'll come back with unnixing the Diane. Happy dollars. All right, who's happy?
Mr. Bill, I'll start it off if you don't mind.
I'd love to have you start, Reggie.
Okay. Well, this weekend on Sunday, my son and his wife were in town. They went a one-day trip for the wedding of my son's wife's brother. And I hadn't seen them in a long time. They live in Florida. So we got to spend a little time together. So I'll give $5 for the opportunity to celebrate that, because it's always great to get to spend face-to-face time, especially these days with close family members.
Thanks, Reggie. Bill Stram is happy.
So I'm kind of in the same boat as Reggie. I'm going to my niece's wedding, which is Saturday in Charlotte. It was postponed from last year, and so they got the same venue from last year for this year. So it'll be good to see all my siblings and nieces and nephews and whatnot. So I have $5 for that.
Good for you, Bill. And you drive safely now. Get back to us. Meddy, did I see your finger pop up?
Yeah, I want to have $5 happy dollars for my granddaughter's graduation on Tuesday, and I will be in Atlanta on that day to celebrate her graduation with her. However, I could not attend the ceremony because of COVID restrictions. It's limited to 2 people. And so I will just have to take her to dinner after the graduation.
Good for you, Meddy. Meddy is our globe trotter. You travel safely too, Meddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, Jackie's at the eye doctor's. And if she were here, I'm not sure if she would, because she's so cheap. But on behalf of Jackie, I'm going to give $5 because her son, the Hollywood director, and his son's wife, the star of Grey's Anatomy, she's a surgeon on that show, they're having a baby. They got married about a year ago, so so they got a bun in the oven. So Jackie would support that, and then I'll tag along behind Jackie. Today is my middle boy's birthday. That's the New York State Trooper, the guy that walks around with a gun. God bless him, and he's 43 today. So that's Paul. That's $5 for my son's birthday.
About for Jackie.
5 for Jackie too.
All right, thanks.
You tell her that she's done 5. I'm not going to tell her.
We won't tell her anything. She'll just get billed for it.
Okay. Any other happy dollars?
I do.
Yeah, Randy.
I've got 5 happy dollars. They're kind of spread out. It's, let me make sure I get this right now. It's a dollar for Joan and a dollar for Jim for the great job they did with the PR work. They're really fantastic. Another dollar for Mike, Al, and Stan for the tough task they had to get the tickets out, and probably even tougher tasks they're going to have to go and collect. But the good news, and there were a lot of other people that I haven't given happy dollars for yet who contributed certainly in the sales at Strawberry. But the important thing about the 5, other than Stan, who's a little long in the tooth, the other 4 are all relatively new members of the club. And I think that's really important. So I have 5 happy dollars for that group. Thank them all for helping out.
Thank you, Randy. And you'll have other weeks between now and the drawing to
No doubt.
to get happy again. Okay. I guess, oh, Mary has, get yourself off mute, Mary.
Happy dollar. I have 5 happy dollars for all the good things happening in our club.
Very good. And Mary, this is a record. You have stayed on the meeting for 40 minutes. You've never done that before.
Oh, my internet works well today, so I'm happy for that.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Diane. That'll conclude happy dollars. And it's my pleasure now. Jen, are you Jen or Jennifer?
You got to get Dave back in.
Yeah, Dave is waving his hand.
Oh, wait. David, sorry.
Hey, I've got 5 happy dollars, please. You know, I'm expecting my 10th grandchild in September. And so far, the 2 oldest have graduated from college now. And the third who's 18 and graduating from Nandua High School next month, has just visited Virginia Commonwealth University and decided that that's where he wants to go, finally. And so I'm thrilled. His mother is a graduate of VCU. And so I'm very happy to announce that I've got a grandson who's chosen to go to VCU in the fall. So $5 on that one. Thank you.
My apologies for overlooking you there, David. I'm not too sharp this morning. All right, now, any other happy dollars? I think everybody's given something. So I'm pretty safe on moving on. Jen, take yourself off of mute and let us know if you are Jen or Jennifer, and tell us a little bit about yourself before you share the story about highway road markers.
All right, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, this afternoon. I do go by Jen, and I have been a historian at the Department of Historic Resources here in Richmond for 7 years. Before that, I worked at the Library of Virginia. I went to college at William and Mary, and so I've been a historian for my whole professional career. After graduate school is when I moved to Richmond, and really love it here. I grew up for the most part in Kansas, so I'm definitely enjoying being on the East Coast. Live here in Richmond with my husband and our 11-year-old son. So with that, I can go ahead and do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me go ahead and try to get that running here.
You are on.
It's not showing what I intended though. Let's see.
Well, you're halfway there.
Yeah, it's showing something, I guess. Let's see here. That looks a little more like it.
There you are. You're not Jen, or you're Jennifer there.
Okay, well, that works too. I will answer to Jennifer if necessary. on those more formal occasions. So I figured what I would do is tell you a little bit about kind of the history and the background of the marker program, and then discuss how it operates today. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. If you're interested in maybe applying for some markers, we can talk about that. This out a little bit, okay. The marker program, I guess, as I mentioned, is based at the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. And this is a state agency with headquarters in Richmond. The agency's mission is to encourage the stewardship of all of Virginia's historic property resources, properties and sites. So we manage a variety of programs that you may be familiar with, including the Virginia Landmarks Register, rehabilitation tax credits for the restoration of buildings, and preservation easements that protect historic landscapes. But I would say the marker program is probably the most visible and popular project that DHR has. And all of Virginia's official state markers look like the ones you see here. They are silver with black lettering, the state seal on the top. And there are now a little more than 2,500 of these all across the state, as you can see here. The marker program was established in 1927, and its purpose was to mark Virginia's historic sites with signs that could easily be read from a car. And the idea was to kind of turn the Commonwealth into an open air museum. So as people made their way around the state learning about its history, the idea was that they might contribute to local economies, kind of the idea of heritage tourism as they passed through. And this would help stimulate economic development in what was then the new age of the automobile. First guidebook to the system was published in 1930. Each marker was assigned an alphanumeric code. So you can see the one at the top here is V9. And one of the questions that I'm frequently asked is whether these codes have any particular meaning. So in the early days, the codes were derived from the highways on which the markers were erected. Those along Route 1 were labeled with an E, for example. Those on Route 11 were labeled with A's, and the ones on Route 50 were labeled B. And the program really no longer follows the roadways when assigning these codes, but each sign is simply given the letter that's most prominent in its locality and then receives the next available number. By about 1930, so really just 3 years after the program had been established, about 700 markers had been erected. And the early ones had very brief inscriptions, often just a sentence or two. And the subject matter tended to focus on colonial churches and houses, the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, and westward expansion, and things like that. So only 3 of the first 700 signs dealt explicitly with African American history, and only 7 focused on women of any race. And those who were mentioned were typically wives or relatives of famous men. Meanwhile, Civil War topics, primarily battles and troop movements, accounted for about 250 markers of those first 700. Relatively few signs were added to the system between the 1940s and the 1970s. And then in the mid-70s, the state stopped funding new markers. And with that change in policy, the program entered its modern era, in which any individual or organization can submit an application to have a marker erected. If the application is approved, the applicant pays for the manufacture of the sign, which is currently just under $2,000. So for the last 5 decades, it hasn't been the state that's really selecting marker topics. Basically, we work with the applications that we receive. One exception to this pattern was that DHR was awarded a federal grant in the 1990s and into the early 2000s to create more markers about African Americans, women, and Native Americans to diversify the system. So I'll tell you now a bit about how the program currently operates, and I'll start here with our statement of purpose, which, as you can see, basically says that our purpose in erecting markers is to educate the public about Virginia's history, not to honor, memorialize, or commemorate persons, events, or places, because highway markers are not honorific in nature. They do not serve the same purpose as monuments, statues, memorial plaques, or war memorials. So we always emphasize that highway markers are not there to honor or applaud or celebrate the topics. Their purpose is educational. To be eligible for approval, a proposed topic must meet the following criteria. So the topic needs to be of regional or statewide significance, which means that subjects of primarily local importance are not eligible. Text for a marker needs to demonstrate how the subject reflects broader trends in American history or in Virginia history. The topic must have attained its significance at least 50 years ago. No marker can be about a living person. Information must be able to be verified with reliable sources, preferably primary sources, those being, materials created in the historic era that we're describing. And marker text must not editorialize or assign value judgments. We have 4 application deadlines throughout the year, and each deadline corresponds to a quarterly meeting of the Virginia Board of Historic Resources. And those meetings take place in March, June, September, and December. The board, which consists of 7 members who are appointed by the governor, is the body that's responsible for approving all new markers. If someone wants to apply, they submit a packet to us that includes a completed application form, a proposed marker text of about 100 words, the documents that help verify the information. They send us a bibliography and photocopies of the documents that we will need to use to do our fact-checking process. A map indicating the desired location of the marker, and then confirmation that funding is in place to manufacture the sign. And we can process 11 of these applications per quarter. The role of my office is to fact check and edit the proposed marker text in order to produce the most accurate and educationally valuable text possible in the approximately 100 words that we can fit onto a marker. So this process typically involves conducting quite a bit of additional historical research on the subject, because we want to be sure that we're not leaving out anything important, and we want to be sure that we situate the topic in its broader historical context to be as educationally valuable as possible. So I work with each applicant to iron out a final draft, and then the draft needs to win the approval of our marker editorial committee, which is a group of historians and copy editors from outside our agency. And this committee evaluates the historical accuracy, the writing style, and the level of significance of each project. Then the final stage of the approval process is an official vote by the Board of Historic Resources, and that's what you're looking at here, one of the quarterly board meetings. Topics featured on markers today are much more diverse than they were in the early decades of the program. There are now 370 markers about African American history, and we recently published a guidebook to Virginia's African American historical markers, which is available from the University of Virginia Press. Actually, since that book came out in 2019, we've added about 65 new markers that will be able to go into the next edition of it. And I'm sure there will be many more coming along as well. Over the last 5 years, 48% of all the new markers approved have had to do with African American history. And so this has helped bring visibility to important parts of Virginia's history that had been ignored for a very long time. I pulled from our database the markers in Northampton County. There are 12 markers, and 4 of those are about African Americans. And the program is also diversified in a number of other ways, expanding to include topics in sports, music, art, literature, medicine, and kind of popular culture, and everything you can imagine. After the board approves a marker, we then start working on getting its location approved. For signs that will be erected in the right-of-way of the Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT, they send out a traffic engineer to inspect the site and make sure that it is sufficient in terms of traffic safety. If a marker will be located within a town or city, then the local public works department will typically do that work. After the marker is installed, then the sponsor can have an unveiling and dedication ceremony. And these allow the sponsors to celebrate the successful conclusion of their project. And because there's been really robust interest in the marker program over the last few years, we have quite a few new markers on the roadsides today. One option I'll mention for communities to pursue if they want to erect signs for topics that don't qualify for the state program, generally because they're more local in focus, the locality can establish a local marker program, and any state or any county or city or town in the state can do this. And they would basically work with me to get it set up. The Board of Historic Resources has to approve the program initially, but it's kind of, the board is just looking at basically, does the local signage look sufficiently different from the state highway markers so that the public would not be able to confuse the two? So they're looking for the local markers to have a different color, shape, maybe different size. And then the board would give kind of an umbrella approval to the local program. But then after that, the local program can operate without any oversight from the state. DHR does offer a searchable online database for the program, and this can be accessed from our website, which is available here at the top of the screen. And once you get in there, you can search for markers by keyword, route number, and code number at the top, or the locality. And then finally, this is my contact information. I am still teleworking full-time, so email is generally the easiest way to reach me these days. Hope to be able to get back to the office a bit here before too long. Just got my second vaccine shot this morning, so I'm on my way. So that is what I have on the program, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Before we start the Q&As, Jen, will you go back a slide so we can get that URL? Okay, I have it now. I'll get it out to everybody in an email if you're interested in doing a little research on your own. So, hey, Jen, that was great. Thank you so much. I'm sure we have questions, so let's fire away. Any questions for Jen?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mehdi.
I noticed I have the book that you mentioned about the African American historical markers, and I noticed that there are four signs in Northampton County. One is the Cape Charles Colored School, which the Rosenwald School here in Cape Charles. And the other three are the Northampton County High School, the Peter Jacob Carter site, and then the site of the Tidewater Institute. So we would like to work with you as to whether some of the local historical sites that we would identify in Cape Charles would qualify for similar signs.
Sure, I'd be happy to work with you if you wanted to brainstorm some ideas. That would be great. You
Yeah.
know, you can sort of pick one or two that you think might be most promising and try to go for those first. However you want to do it, I'm happy to work with you on figuring out the best path forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. And you'll hear from us again, Jen.
Sounds good.
David has a question for you, Jen.
Well, you know, in Franktown, there's a place called the Dewdrop Inn, which is an African-American nightclub founded in 1960. And the Crudup Brothers was the home act. And the Crudup Brothers wrote Elvis Presley's first song. So we have a really historical place in Franktown that I think we ought to bring to their attention. Just thought I'd make that comment, folks.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Any other question for Jen?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
Jen, you mentioned the numbers and the letters at the top of the markers. How does that correspond with the road? I mean, is different letters for whatever?
Yeah, that's how it started out. So each highway in the state was assigned a different letter. And that's what they initially did back in the 1920s and 30s. And since then, that system has fallen by the wayside a bit. So now we just go with whatever letter is most prominent in the county. We will, when we're putting a new marker in that county, we'll just scan the database, see, oh, well, most markers in you know, Goochland County start with SA. So I'm going to give this one an SA and then just try to give it the next number that's available, because we obviously don't want duplicates. But they don't have any meaning or relevance in terms of the content of the sign or anything. It's really just a tracking device that VDOT mostly uses when they're discussing markers with me. We just refer to it by the code number for simplicity's sake.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
I have. Who has one?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Jen, how long does it typically take to establish one of these committees that would then generate its own signs? What's the expense, and how long does it take typically?
You mean to set up a local program?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how it typically works on their end. Usually by the time a locality has set up its own committee, you know, they kind of discuss it and then they bring it to me. And on our end, it doesn't take very long. We just bring it to the next quarterly meeting of the board, and I'll do a quick presentation and I'll show kind of what color and shape of sign the local group has selected, and the board will approve that. And by the way, it's fairly easy to pick out signage that does not look like the Virginia state markers, because there's a particular foundry we work with, and they do almost all the historical markers for every state that has a program. So they have a huge variety of colors and sizes and shapes there that you can choose from. And so it's usually a breeze to get that approved by our board, and then the locality can just take it and run with it as they see fit. So it does have to be something that's sponsored by a local governmental body. It can't be like the local historical society that does it. It has to be a program that the local government sets up and operates.
Well, Jim, we have the Invisible History Project of the Rotary that is going to select the site, and we are in the process of working on the site identification and then researching the historical significance, and then we can make an application to whatever program is appropriate for a marker.
Mehdi, how many markers do you think, do you foresee when this whole program is done?
Well, I don't know, but we would like to start with one to get started with the process and see how it goes.
Well, do you think there might be a dozen or so markers?
Well, probably not a dozen, but we can identify other sites that once one marker is identified, we can associate other sites with that marker and expand the reach of that marker in that regard. But I think we'd like to start with one and see what the experience is like and then move from there.
David, do you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, who maintains the markers after they're erected?
If they're in the VDOT right of way, then VDOT is responsible for the maintenance. And as you may have noticed over the decades, they haven't exactly been on the ball with doing that all the time. So we do have some deteriorated markers out there. But last year, almost exactly a year ago, VDOT brought a new sign contractor on board that they had never had in place before. And so this contractor is now officially responsible for marker maintenance, and they're on a schedule where at least every 3 years, each marker is supposed to be visited by one of their staff, and they are supposed to clean it and do any touch-up work that's necessary, clean the brush that may be growing up around it, and so forth. So the ones in VDOT territory seem, at least if everything goes as it's supposed to, they're in good hands right now. The ones in localities, so there are, I think, about 80 cities and towns where VDOT does not handle markers because they don't maintain the roadways in those places. And so in those towns and cities, it's the local government that has this responsibility. And so some of them take care of the markers really well, and others never touch them.
And one other question, since these are markers on the roadside and folks are supposed to pull their car off on the side of the road and read the marker, is there some safety concerns that need to be addressed in the application process?
Well, that portion typically comes in at the end of the process. So we work with my office and we get the text approved by our board. And after that point, I will set up an appointment between the applicant and a traffic engineer from VDOT who comes out and does a site inspection. And if the traffic engineer is not comfortable with the site that's been proposed, then he or she will select or propose an alternative. So, I mean, they have specific guidelines they're supposed to follow in terms of traffic safety. So sometimes they do reject the site that the applicant has proposed and have to go with a different one.
And with the site, I notice a lot of markers refer to a site that might be a mile away from the location of the sign. Is it the purpose of the sign to alert folks to the existence of the site? Or in other words, the most ideal arrangement would be to have the sign and the site together, obviously, but if the site is located in some remote location, is this something that needs to be taken into consideration? I'm asking, please.
Yeah, we always have to balance. So the desire to have the marker visible to the traveling public, I mean, that's most important to us. Is if we're going to educate people, people have to be able to see the marker. And so if the site that it's referring to is in an extremely rural location with small roads that don't see much traffic, then we prefer to place the marker out on a main roadway that's in that vicinity so that people actually have a chance to see it. Ideally, of course, as you say, the sign would be placed right at the site that it's describing, but it just doesn't always work out that way.
Well, we've run out of time unless there's one last quick question. Hey, Jen, thank you so much for taking time out to visit with us. And it looks like we'll be doing business with you in the future.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, I appreciate the invitation to be here and hope you all have a great afternoon.
Thank you. And we wish you and your family well.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, Diane. With regard to what we think, say, and do, 1, is it the
Is it
truth?
the truth?
Is it
2,
fair?
is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill friendships? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And Stanley,
We will have fun.
there you go. See you next week, folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.